Timothy Holloway.
And I'm Riley Judd.
And welcome back to Know Your Nonsense podcast.
Yes, welcome back.
So if you remember, we left you with a little hint. Or
bad one.
Yes, I left you with a hint, and I will take full credit that it was not that great.
We're talking about mummies this week.
Specifically curses that come with them.
Curses with mummies.
So, that's going to be a great time.
No swearing, but there's a curse. Yeah, there was no swearing at all.
I mean...
Period.
Yeah, no. The whole, guess that it was some dude that got cursed because of his swearing, though, that's fun. I wonder if there is something like that.
Probably. My folklore's fun. At the Red Rubber Ball Cryptid. Tell your friends.
I guess that could count as folklore it gets big enough. Yeah.
I'm making it folklore now.
Okay, well, apparently you have that authority.
Look, if birds cannot be real, then the Red Rubber Ball can be a cryptid.
I will give you that one. Okay, put it on a billboard.
For those of you who don't know what I just said, Google it. Birds aren't real. Anyway.
Continuing on. We are talking about mummies and mummy curses, specifically, I think, of the Egyptian variety. I don't think we got anywhere outside of that.
No, I mean, because obviously mummification is a process not unique to Egypt.
No, yeah.
But I didn't find anything particularly cursey in any other culture.
No. But other cultures, mummification is really cool.
Yes. So if there are other culture curses, tell us the excitement that we missed.
Yeah, please do. That sounds really exciting, except for, the part of being cursed.
Curses are fun. Why do you think horror games and horror movies exist?
Yeah, that's something I don't understand.
I get it. Anyway.
Continuing on.
We will be keeping with the Egyptian variety.
Right. So, Riley, start us off.
Alrighty. So, the Egyptian mummy curse has a pretty fudgy start to its timeline.
Good way to put that.
Yeah, because what's people are fairly confident about, what researchers are fairly confident about, as far as I saw, that the idea of a mummy curse did not originate from Egypt itself. So the kind of start that most people consider is in 19th century Victorian England, where there were big parties where people would unwrap mummies that they got from Egypt.
Think ancient unboxings.
Yes. I don't know what the appeal of this was. You know what you're gonna find. It's a corpse.
People have always been weird.
Yeah. Good job, Victorian. Anyway, so this inspired a couple of writers who wrote stories about mummies and, usually of the reanimating variety. And so you would get, Jane Webb in 1827, she wrote the first English language mummy story, which was The Mummy, A Tale of the 22nd Century. You had Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote Some Words with a Mummy. You even had, eventually, long down the line, because there's been a lot of mummy books, Louisa May Alcott, the woman who wrote Little Woman. She wrote Lost in a Pyramid, or The Mummy's Curse. Full title.
Yeah.
But the folklore seemed to begin with the most popular case, which was King Tut's tomb. So, they go into the pyramid, they manage to get into King Tut's tomb. So a man by the name of Howard Carter was the one who sort of led the expedition, and it was sponsored by Lord Carnarvon. And so they get in, and they see lovely treasures and golds and jewels and all the goodies.
Oh, yeah.
But then, not too long after the expedition, Lord Carnarvon dies of blood poisoning. And then not only does he die, but his half-brother also dies of blood poisoning. And that is not the only people who on the expedition died. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, died of an illness after the venture. George J. Gould, who was a railroad tycoon, died of fever. He was at the tomb opening as well. And then a bunch of King Tut's gifts were given to Sir Bruce Ingram, whose house burnt down. And then they built it back up again, and it was flooded. So a lot of people the rumor started that because they disturbed the mummy's tomb, that they were cursed, that it would, by disturbing a mummy's tomb, you brought yourself illness, bad luck, and death. Which was actually a rumor that was perpetuated by none other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was, a known occult believer. He thought this was the case, which, out of all of that craziness, because a lot of people did die in the grand, that was a good amount of people who died pretty closely after the tomb opening, but for some reason, this curse left Howard Carter alive. He died much later in his life. He died due to heart disease. But this is what kind of sparked the interest in, mummy curses, while some scholars believe that this had no basis in Egyptian, writing and Egyptian burials. There was no curses. There was a guy with National Geographic named Montserrat. He's a National Geographic. He had an interview with National Geographic who he stated that this was nothing that came from Egypt. When you had some other people who, like I'm going to butcher this, Salima Ikram, an Egyptologist at the American University in Cairo, mentioned how there were some mastabas, or non-pyramid tombs, within Giza and Saqqara that were actually inscribed with curses meant to terrify those who wanted to rob the resting place. They would tend to threaten the people who were coming to rob the tombs with divine retribution by the Council of the Gods, or by, death by snakes, death by scorpions, lions, crocodiles, hippos, all the unfriendly Egyptian people.
Very fun and, I guess, creative ways to kill people.
Oh, yeah.
Came out of this. Yeah, it was a wild time.
They generally, the ones I read, they would want to cover the land and the water. So, may hippos kill you by water and may scorpions kill you by land, kind of deal.
Makes sense for Egyptians because their relationship with the Nile and how important that was.
Yeah. But, the rumors, because you had all these people who died related to uncovering this tomb, it became such a huge thing. And so you had people who were just losing their minds over all of this. So hundreds of people in England were packing up all of their Egyptian antiques that they had and just giving them to museums. They were just getting rid of them. They were just get these out of the house as quickly as possible. And you even had several American politicians who went so far as to call for an investigation of mummies in various museums to determine whether or not they had the same medical dangers as those apparent at King Tut's tomb. So this literally hit everyone. Everybody had, mummy curse fever. It was just everywhere. And this, of course, led to more mummy stories that circulated in popularity. The first that was adapted to film was a man named Stoker in his book, The Jewel of Seven Stars. It was the first mummy book adapted to film, but this didn't have what we would think of as a mummy. It had a mummified Egyptian queen who looked like a normal person for most of the film and described in most of the book. Eventually, pretty soon, she had her bandages taken off. The classic mummy look came from movies like The Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Hand, The Mummy's Curse, and of course, The Mummy, the classic Universal movie.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this is what got us the, absolutely covered in bandages, kind of slow, stumbly, but cannot be killed. The best way to kill it was with fire, I think, was generally one of the most popular methods. And yeah, that's what I got. Is the basics of the mummy curse is just if you disturb a mummy, bad vibes coming your way.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure a lot of it. But
how much did I miss? Quite a bit.
There's a bit.
I missed quite a bit. I kind of thought I missed quite a bit.
It's okay because we're just kind of learning as we go.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna have duds in your research, kids.
Exactly.
It'll happen.
Exactly. And how much did you spend researching this? By the way?
About 4 hours.
Okay, cool. That was about 4 or 5 hours myself.
Yeah,
so
it's probably closer to 4.5.
Yeah, I didn't spend as much time on the actual more modern, modern implications of the mummy and modern movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you gave a pretty good cover and everything. There's just a few things I want to add.
Yes, go for it.
First off, the stuff with Tut's tomb, you said?
Yes.
All really great. I did want to add a couple more names to the deaths, though.
More deaths.
Yeah, always.
Yes.
Always more deaths.
Excitement.
Let's see. There was Arthur Mace. He was on the excavation team with Howard Carter. Howard Carter? Yeah?
Howard Carter.
Yeah, okay. He died of arsenic poisoning.
Yeah.
In 1928. So
I saw that name.
People saw that and were like, he's just the next in a long line of people who had died.
Yeah.
This is problematic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then also Howard's secretary, Richard Bethel, was apparently smothered in his sleep in 29.
Oh.
I know, right? And people saw this, and again, they were like, isn't this just a year after this other guy died from being poisoned by something?
I'm sorry, smothered?
Smothered.
I'm still did somebody smother him? Did he just get wrapped up in his blankets and suffocate?
This source doesn't say. It kind of implies that murder.
Wow. Okay, so the mummy just kind of waltzed on over, unwrapped his, I don't know, arm or something, and was like, "You're done.
Maybe.
You're out."
Yeah.
Carter slipped by because he couldn't find his address.
Well, that's the thing. He died of Hodgkin's disease in 1939. He was in his 60s.
Yeah.
And even that people attributed to the curse.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, as we can see, Hodgkin's disease, we can look at that today, and I'm pretty sure that's a genetic disease. That's something that people inherit, so it's not something that can be caused by a curse per se.
Yeah.
But that just fed to the folklore even more.
Of course.
Because it was only, 20 years after this had all happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. It fed into that a lot. But yeah, that's King Tut's stuff. I wanted to go into a few earlier mummy stories, though.
Earlier mummies.
Because those also have fed into the folklore that surrounds mummies, and that kind of fed into what they were. One of these is the story of a Walter Ingram. So this guy... I heard a lot about this on the Lore podcast, by the way. If you haven't given Aaron Mankey and Lore a listen, go check it out. This is the episode. Let me look it up real quick. It is episode 127, Tipping the Scales. So go give that a look. That's a good source for stuff like this. But this story is of a guy named Walter Ingram. So essentially, he was, son of a British newspaper owner, right?
Right.
Kind of the Playboy type character. I think Tony Stark heading into the first Iron Man movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. And he's going and he's serving in Africa in the Sudanese wars, I believe. And he's trying to make a name for himself. Kind of they're thinking of it as vacation, almost. As a way to try and get his name in his father's papers. Well, he meets this guy named Henry Mew, and he was a commanding officer, I believe. And they strike up a friendship, and when he gets back from Africa, he gets married, and so does Henry Mew. And they decide, you know what? This is a good idea. Let's take our wives, and let's go back to Africa on a hunt. But here's the kicker. he had picked up a mummy's sarcophagus lid when he was in Africa the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought that back with him, and he loved it. He actually gifted it to Sir Henry Mew and his new bride. That becomes important later.
Shh.
Yeah, it's great.
Wow. Spoilers.
Yeah. He goes back to Africa with his friends and his new bride, and it's a great honeymoon, apparently, and they're going elephant hunting. Well, at one point, he decides to use something that isn't an elephant gun, something a bit weaker, and he is promptly trampled by an elephant he was trying to hunt after acquiring this mummy's sarcophagus lid and giving it away. So people heard about this and they thought, oh man, that there's a connection there. And that fed more into this folklore about a curse from a mummy. And I heard from one source somewhere that the inscription in the lid, which this might have been debunked later, so don't quote me on this, but the inscription in the lid was something like how if you disturb this sarcophagus, you will die in a gruesome way and then your body will be washed down a river or something like that. Well, this actually happened to this guy. Straight up, he got trampled to a very unrecognizable state, might I add.
Oh.
He was buried by, his now widow and his friends. And then the storms came and washed his body down a river. Or what was left of it, except for like a bone in a sock. That's it. That's all that was left of the guy.
Oh.
Yeah. Pleasant stuff, right?
Lovely.
But this just fed more and more into this thought of mummies and curses. Now, also, by the way, this is around late 1800s. Like 1888 is what this picture I'm looking at is from. And it's of the Ingram mummy. This is saying it was a full mummy, so maybe that was it. Maybe there's a bit of source confliction here. Actually, let me verify that real quick. And okay, no, sorry. Ingram had the full mummy, I believe.
Okay.
Him and his wife, they had gifted it to their friend Sir Henry Mew and his wife as a wedding gift, I believe. But that was the full mummy.
Yes.
The mummy lid was bought by a man named Thomas Murray. Thomas Douglas Murray.
Okay.
And essentially he decided to go on a Nile trip, after he graduated.
Of course.
Not a bad plan. I mean, I'd love to do something like that. But then, of course, they were kind of terrible to a bunch of people. And,
naturally.
Yeah. Conned a man out of a mummy case with his fellow friends, and they, cast lots to see who would get to keep it. And he did. He got to keep it. And as soon as he got it, back to his home, he went on another trip and accidentally shot his arm off.
Oh.
Straight up, grabbed a gun. The story I heard was he tripped, and it fired on accident and shot him in the arm.
He tripped.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whether that's actually what happened, I have no idea.
Folklore.
But apparently this was even out, still in Egypt, actually. I was wrong. He didn't get it back home. He was just going to get it back home.
Oh.
And he shot himself before he could do so.
As one does.
Yeah. But he survived, which is a miracle in, 1800s, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of tainted his thought of that coffin, because even he had heard the curses. There are some Egyptian curses that I found that were like, if you even so much as remove a stone from the inside of this chamber, all these bad, crappy things will happen to you.
Huh.
So yeah, that's Thomas Murray and Walter Ingram. Those are both long before King Tut, at least 20 years before that tomb was opened.
And I did my own verification, and Walter Ingram, because I saw Ingram, and I'm like, well, I had a Bruce Ingram. My story is Bruce Ingram, he ran a newspaper where he constantly was reporting about Egyptian stuff because of how much he loved Egyptian stuff. And he actually reported on Walter Ingram's death by a mummy curse.
That must have been weird,
before his house burned down. Yes, not related as far as I could tell.
What is with... Okay, we'll talk more about this later, but there is something weird with people dying from Egyptian, curse methods, and then somebody else reporting on it or having interest in it.
And then dying as well.
No, not dying as well. But I mean, yours did.
I mean, he did. As I said, is the theme
problematic
problems.
But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Oh.
But yeah, something else I wanted to mention was with Walter Ingram's, mummy that he gifted to his friends.
Yes.
The woman in that family, Sir Henry Muse's wife, what was her name? Where'd it go?
Olivia.
No, I think it was like Thea or something like that.
I was close. There is an sound.
Her name starts with a T, and I will get that to you all. But she was
Queen Tut.
Oh, yeah, there's the... Okay, so I was wrong.
No.
It wasn't a T, it's a V. Lady Valerie Muse, I think it is.
So Olivia, I was right.
Almost.
There's
closer than I was. But, she met her husband and they got married. She was actually apparently a banjo-playing barmaid in Brighton, so that's a fun time.
Just casually.
Man loves a good banjo, I guess. Good for him.
You go, Valerie.
But either way, she was a big fan of Egypt, artifacts, objects from Egypt. And this, mummy that she was given from the Ingrams, that was wonderful for them. But, of course, after he died, it might have been a sad reminder.
Yeah.
Not the point, though, because later, towards her death, I believe it was after her death, she tried to give it to the British Museum, but they rejected it.
Oh.
We're not exactly sure why.
But
there is some speculation that it was because of the nature of some possibly cursed artifacts in her collection, possibly including said mummy. So, yeah, that's a fun time. And that is all I'm going to fill in from what you gave us, because, this is a good amount of information.
Yeah.
That's Egyptian mummy curses.
Yes, folklore, yo.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fun stuff you can find out in a short time.
Yes. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we shall do the discussing.
More discussion for you coming up. And it will be right after this break.
Yes.
Bye-bye. And we're back.
We are.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Discussion time. Riley.
Yes. So,
what shocked you?
Definitely the thing that shocked me the most, especially after, our nice pre-meeting where Timothy filled me in on all the juicy rumors that I missed, is that, mummies have not quite latched into the, pop culture sphere as hard as other monsters. It's because it's a very popular monster. It's one of the classic monsters that you think of. But it's like the B-list of those classic monsters. It's, with those mummy movies, none of them have really been, huge successes. They made a new mummy movie not too many years back, and I never saw it, but as far as I saw on all my film review sites, nobody really cared for it. So they just, they don't have quite the, ancient folklore standing of, say, werewolves. They don't have quite the pop culture standing as, say, zombies. So they're just given the short end of the stick, which I found really surprising because I'm like, it's mummies.
Yeah,
it's classic.
Especially since when you learn about, when mummification became popular, mummies are exceedingly old.
Yeah.
Possibly older than most other folklores we have because of just the nature of them.
Yeah, but while mummies are old, the mummy monster, the mummy curse is not. Because, Egyptians, particularly, the most famous mummiers, as we have discussed, they didn't see this as a monstrous thing. This was
No.
a classic, it was a nice, somber thing as we get you to the afterlife safely.
Right, yeah.
So...
And as far as the whole curse goes, what examples, quote unquote, we have, it apparently sounds more legalistic than anything.
Yeah.
So it's more of like a, hey, don't break the law and come rob this mummy. It's a bad plan.
Yeah. It's just ancient security systems.
Yeah. Which worked in some cases. Like King Tut, that's the reason he was so important when they found him, because his tomb had actually been untouched. Most tombs had been looted and robbed and all sorts of bad things. But his wasn't, so that's really cool. Fun little tidbit for you.
Good job, Tut.
Yeah.
Way to stay safe. You didn't do anything, but, good job. Way to lay
Good
there.
job to Tut's servants.
Yeah.
They don't get enough thanks.
I mean, I think Tut deserves some credit for not getting up.
That's fair.
With all these mummy curses, he could have just...
risen up.
He just yeeted out of bed. Been like, leave my gold alone. Anyway, I was just surprised at how little mummies seemed to fully integrate themselves into pop culture with all of these folklore bits. Because it's a wonderful piece of folklore.
Right.
But it's kind of fizzled out. It's kind of had its moment, which is a shame.
Yeah. I'd love to see more mummy stuff. I think it'd be fun.
Some good mummy stuff.
Good mummy stuff,
We need
yeah.
some good mummy stuff.
Well written, good costuming, not just toilet paper.
Yeah, good scares.
Yeah. Well,
good scares. We need good scares.
You need good scares.
Good scares are good.
But yeah, bring us more mummies.
Yeah. So something that you knew and were wrong about, or something you didn't know.
Okay, yeah. This is something I didn't know, which blew my mind, and I guess I can chalk it up to how far-reaching the mummy myths and curses or became. And that's because it has to do with our good friend, what was it? Thomas Mueller. The guy who had the mummy sarcophagus lid.
Mueller.
No.
Mueller.
So, Thomas, when he gifted this mummy lid to the British Museum, somehow a rumor got started that it was being shipped out of the Americas. Like, it had been in the Americas for some reason, and there was a rumor that somebody needed to get it out of the Americas. And guess what ship they had put it on, apparently, according to this rumor? The Titanic.
Dun, dun, dun!
Of all the places, apparently, this is where it ended up. And that I had no idea. I had no idea about this. Again, check out Lore Podcast, because that's where I heard this. It's really cool. But this supposedly ended up there, and this kind of made people mad. Specifically, one woman, Margaret Murray. There's the whole, name familiarity with no relation, apparently. Being involved with the other person who has their name and is also dealing with Egyptian antiquity.
It's a family business.
I guess, except it's not, because they're not related.
It's extended family business.
Oh, gosh. But she was she was leader of a folklore society, and she was fighting for women's rights in that area, and she was, as I like to put it, a lover of good facts. These were not good facts that people were spreading around about Egyptian antiquity and items from Egyptian history.
Wait, so was it actually on the Titanic?
No.
Oh, so
I don't believe
was
so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
it was just
fake.
a rumor. Dirty, nasty rumor. Who knows where it came from?
Got.
But she decided, you know what? I'm going to prove that this was all just a rumor. And she started a rumor that it was actually on the RMS... What does that say? Empress of Ireland.
Empress
of Ireland. It was another boat that sank 2 years after the Titanic. And everybody was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And she proved her point, all it takes is a well-founded rumor to smear the reputation of one of these artifacts.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that's what surprised me. That's what I did not know, that there was a mummy curse associated with the sinking of the Titanic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, was there anything that you wished you could find, but you could not find?
Not in particular. Not in particular this time around.
Okay.
What about you?
For me, this mostly because I was very interested. It's like, what does this folklore have on pop culture impact? Because, as I said, it's a classic monster.
Right.
There is not a good list of mummies in pop culture, which really, it was a huge shame because, I tried to look it up because I remembered mummies from, TV shows.
Right,
like,
yeah.
I've been watching Phineas and Ferb, and it's like episode, 3. It's so early on. They go looking for a mummy. And, I remembered mummies from video games, like in Legend of Zelda, there are these mummy monsters called Gibdos that can freeze you by screaming at you, and then you're like paralyzed. And then there's a character in the popular game League of Legends named Amumu, who is a mummy. And so I wanted a list, and that list does not exist. You can Google specifics, mummies in games, mummies in movies, and I guess mummies in other things. But there's no just good list. Which, on that note, don't Google mummy movies, because they're all just the mummy, the mummy's hand, the mummy's curse, the mummy's head. It's just the mummy insert body part here. Coming out in 2020, the mummy's spleen. Ooh. So don't look at movies. Anyway, but that's what I wanted to find. But Fair I definitely, enough, yeah. After hearing all the juicy rumors, definitely want to go back and try to Google some more mummy rumors, because that was exciting.
It's wild what you'll find, man.
That's wild.
It's a good time, though.
Yes.
But let me raise you this idea.
All right, I'm ready.
Zombies and mummies. Same thing, except for their wardrobe.
I literally had that thought when I was looking this up, because I was looking up the reanimating, mummies, because that was not always the mummy's curse. Like, not every mummy's curse was, the mummy's going to come back to life and kill you. No, that was not all of them. But once I got into that, I was like, yeah, honestly, this is just an overglorified zombie, is it not?
It's just a zombie with a royal position.
See?
And not even that every time, because not all mummies were royal. There were, honestly, some less than royal ones. Not quite peasants, because it was still very expensive, but there's some singer mummies and some actors and entertainers.
Yeah,
priests.
I would think it kind of has to do with the mechanics of each.
Okay.
So you could kind of think, zombies are, because they can just be any dead body reanimated. That works as a zombie. It can be much more common, and it just feels much more real. It's just much more grounded. Like, you can encounter a zombie at your local graveyard. You're not going to encounter a mummy at your local graveyard.
True.
And then another thing is, when I say the mechanics behind them, so zombies create more zombies. That's how they kill you.
Yeah,
because when they kill somebody, they bite them, they become a zombie. And so it's kind of, if any of you played, let's go with like the classic game of Sharks and Barracudas.
Do people know what that is?
Maybe. This might not be a good example. Basically, you have two teams, and as you tag people on the other team,
they switch to your side.
Yeah, so teams get smaller and smaller, and it gets scarier. You gotta try to fight back. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of fear there, that buildup of, the army of monsters is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. While mummies, on the other hand, they don't have such grandness of that behind them. They're just one enemy that's very hard to kill.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about that aspect of it, but
so that's probably why zombies have been able to become much more popular than mummies.
Sadly so. But still, bring us more mummy things.
Yes. Let's make some mummies. It's October. Let's get some mummies out there. Let's be mummies for Halloween.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Why not?
I don't know.
Mummies.
Maybe we will. We'll cut this out probably, won't we?
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway,
whatever.
Just leave it in. So that's mummies.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this trip virtually
Yes.
to the Nile River and everything surrounding it.
Yes.
Because fun times in Egypt.
Yes. Egypt's dope.
I want to go there so bad, man.
Man, I kind of want to go, and then I'm like, scorpions.
Okay, but like, there's so much more.
Scorpions.
We will discuss this later.
Anyway, so next week we're on to one of my topics.
Give me that hint. Let's go.
All right, so hint. This is a topic that I borrowed from my neighbor only yesterday.
Oh dear, that's it?
That's what you get.
This is a...
See, for any of you who like know what I just said with my emphases, like, you're gonna think it's so obvious.
From my neighbor
Only yesterday.
Is only emphasized there, or is that yesterday?
Only yesterday.
Only yesterday, okay. This is a topic that you borrowed from your neighbor.
My neighbor.
Only yesterday.
Only yesterday.
Does that spell something?
No.
Oh dear goodness.
You gotta at least guess which area.
Yeah, which area would this be?
Yes.
Games, programming, or design.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with, this is some kind of programming term. This is...
Programming.
Yes? I have no idea, honestly.
You heard it here, folks. His guess so far is programming. Okay, well, if it's in programming,
yes, if it's in programming, I'm thinking it is some sort of code that you can put in that has to do with the date.
With the date.
And telling somebody the date.
Oh.
Because your neighbor told you the date yesterday.
Ooh.
I am completely lost. But I'm locking in my answer. Let's go.
It's a calendar program, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
Alrighty. Well,
come back next week to find out.
Yes, indeed.
Find out how wrong I am.
Honey.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
When you say honey like that, that just lets me know how wrong I am.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Check us out on kynpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email.
Send us some emails. Why not?
Yeah.
And then you can check us out on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Everything's KYN Podcast. Know Your Nonsense Podcast.
That's where you can find us. All podcast services. Yes. Anchor, Spotify.
We send out fun trivia, and we send out more hints for our episodes.
Yeah. Come find us.
Come find us.
And guess before I make another terrible guess.
I mean, you only get one.
Oh, yeah.
You've locked in.
Yeah, I have.
You heard it here, folks.
It's okay. Calendar program.
Calendar program.
I'm going for it.
He's going for it.
Yes.
Wow. Calendars.
Oh, shut up.
Bye.